Hey, I'm Alex Madcala from Board Game Co, and this is To Back or Not to Back, where we're going to go through a variety of crowdfunding campaigns, talking about the games, the stretch goals, the pledges, all of that and more, and of course, should you back it. We're going to go ahead and start off, as you usually do, with our Cult of the Now. Cult of the Now is a segment where we take a look at a currently available game, although this one, to be fair, is cheating a little bit, but I have a justification for it. I'll explain why shortly, but in general, we're about to look at a lot of games that are expensive, deluxe, you'll have to wait a year and a half, you'll have to make risks and this and all those things and see if the game is even good, or who knows, all those various things that make crowdfunding so compelling in some ways, but also a risk in others. A Cult of the Now is the reminder that you can get great games available now, and today's feature title is going to be Dune War for Arrakis, which is technically a pre-order, which I don't usually include in Cult of the Nows. Because this is an expansion, I'm still willing to say, hey, you know, this was over on GameFound at some point, you were able to go ahead and do all the pre-order stuff, or you can just get it now. Great games are available now. Great games come out on a regular basis now. Check out a video I just put up this past week, yesterday, was it yesterday? Check out a video I put up yesterday, I think it was yesterday, of 10 rules for crowdfunding, where I talk about many of the reasons to avoid crowdfunding. As much as there are plenty of reasons to dive into it, there's also reasons to step back and just breathe a little bit. Not this video, obviously. I'm talking about you and purchasing. I'm not going to breathe at all. I try to avoid that as much as possible. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and dive into it. That's your Cult of the Now. Dune War for Arrakis as a war expansion with exclusives. With exclusives. Did you see that? Did you see that? It says with exclusives. How exclusive is it? Like, at what point does it no longer become exclusive when it comes with the exclusives? Anyways, we're going to go ahead and dive in. We have a bunch of the not yet funding category before we we start with the board game adjacent category. We have Modern Meeple Player 1, 32 backers, $5,582 raised, 15 days to go. This is a board game accessory, and if you haven't had the chance to feel this at a convention sometime, this is a very interesting component. Like, the material of this feels very premium. It's not 3D printed, it's not plastic, it's not wood. It's this weird in-between structure that does have a very nice premium feel to it. If you ever had a chance to try it, this does feel very cool. That said, there's a bunch of various options over here for things you can get for this Player 1, for these spinning trays. They also have like dice throne trays and all these things. They have a bunch of stuff over here. If you're looking for board game accessories, that I guarantee you this will feel very premium. Whether or not it's a fit for you is a different conversation. Check out Modern Meeple. They have a bunch of various pleasures and options of things you can get. That's going to be a little game night accessory for your table. Then we have Thunder Road has an RPG over here. Thunder Road Vendetta RPG. 749 backers, $68,000 raised. This is an RPG set in the Thunder Road universe that, yes, you can use your Thunder Road components as well to further, you know, I don't know, enhance your gameplay in whatever way that does enhance your gameplay. Again, I don't do RPGs heavily, so I'm just saying, hey, this exists in case you're interested in it. Here's an RPG around Thunder Road. Similarly, if you're interested in RPGs, if you're done with fighting and you want racing, if you're done with racing and you want cute dragons, we have Draconis, the peaceful way to play D&D. 598 backers, $54,000 raised, 25 days to go. Draconis is exactly what I just said. It's a peaceful way of befriending dragons rather than slaying them. You're going to go ahead and confront dragons, learn more about them, try to figure out what you can feed them, help them with, talk about, I don't know, all the various things you need to do to make friends out of dragons. I've watched How to Train Your Dragon. I assume you have. We basically know what we need to do. This is going to be focused more on, well, befriending rather than fighting, so it's a peaceful D&D environment with tons of dragons, hundreds of pages of, you know, source book and materials and beautiful art and all those things. That's going to be Draconis 5, Draconis 5e, that's what it was, 5e, that's the current setting, the D&D 5e, there we go. Moving on over here to the not yet funding category, we have two currently. We have Robotopia, a strategic Eurogame of robot revolutionaries, 222 backers, 18 days to go, $23,000 raised, coming to you from Peter Hayward, Jelly Bean Games, Coffee Bean, or Bean Games. It looks like they've rebranded. They had a entity, this is not new, just to be clear, not a new designer, not a new creator, just a new entity over here. But Robotopia is going to be a game about throwing off your robot overlord. And before you're like, yes, that's what we're dealing with right now. No, you're robots overthrowing your robot overlord. It's basically just human stuff just converted to robots. We still got problems. They still got problems. The AI is not going to solve much. It's just going to cause its own issues in different ways. But Robotopia is going to utilize a worker placement system where you can place workers in different areas, either on, in between, or in the trifecta of them, depending on the robot's strength, which is actually a mechanic very similar to what you may have seen in Brink. Brink has kind of the same general idea as far as the structure of the robot activation. But either way, this is going to have you placing robots in factory locations, building up your robots, activating your spaces, and trying to basically just become your own robot overlord. Yes, that's the goal. You want to become the robot overlord. It's not really about overthrowing the robot overlord. It's about becoming the thing that you once sought to destroy. Again, very eerily similar to human life over here. We have $55 for the standard edition over here, and then we have, that's going to be basic, all the basics, basic meeples over here. Nothing too fancy there, a Master Robot miniature. But then if you scroll down over here, you get the promo pack, $79 deluxe edition. That's going to be a limited run for the deluxe edition of the game. which gives you 56 custom-shaped screen-printed Meeples, which is going to be an enhancement over regular plain Meeples, as well as the Factory Overdrive expansion. That's what you're going to be getting for an additional $24. And then for $129, you get the all-in with metal coins, the player mats, the acrylic conveyor tiles, the Master Upgrade expansion, all these various things in the full-on Deluxeified edition, as well as a 5th player expansion over here, so a lot of things to get. Overall, this probably will fund before the campaign is over, but as far as should you back or should you not will hold its value, generally, again, that lower interest usually means that it's not going to have that higher interest down the road either. So it's one that it may well be your only chance to get your hands in it because it'll probably have limited availability, but it is one that is less likely to hold its value just because there's less demand on it currently. Moving on, we have Drift Zone Contact, the future of wargaming. I won't heavily be getting into this one because I think this one won't really fund either way. We have 101 backers, 12, actually it might, 23 days to go. It's hard to say. This is one that I always hesitate to say this, but you probably shouldn't back this. Meaning, usually when I focus on should you back or should you not will hold its value, I always say there are many reasons to back games. There are many reasons to get into things, whether it's the FOMO, wanting it first, supporting the creators, the best deal. There are many, many reasons to back games, and I would rarely say you shouldn't back it. Well, except if you watched yesterday's video where I told you about 9 different ways to say you shouldn't back it. But I guess usually I'm focused more on pick your own value system and back accordingly. Over here, this one I think is almost like I'd caution people away from this one because this is focused on augmented reality with a very low funding count. So I don't know what's going on with this one as far as how much technology has been built, but investing into an augmented reality system with such low funding behind it, generally I'd be very, very wary of that. Granted, I don't know like if they fully developed the technology already. Whatever it is they've done, I don't know, but I'd be very wary of technology games with low player counts, backers, whatever you want to call it. So this is one where it's focusing on wargaming. It's the future of wargaming. It's Rift Zone. It looks cool. Well, let me rephrase. It looks cool if you like that kind of thing. I would never play this either way. But even if you're into this, I do worry that it's one that may not end up being what you want it to be just because of the low support for it overall, which is just a tricky situation in general. Like even if it funds $20,000 to support technology and everything behind it, it just seems like it's not the best thing to back. Moving on over here to campaigns that are currently funded, to the actual campaigns of the week. We have Bardsung Tale of the Forsaken Glade from Steamforged Games, 2,368 backers, £402,000 raised, 8 days left to go. Bardsung Tale of the Forsaken Glade is the follow-up to Bardsung. It's going to be, well, backwards compatible-ish. There's going to be an upgrade pack for previous backers to make the game more future friendly, incorporating what you need to incorporate, but it's going to continue the general world of Bardsung. You're going to have these various heroes, you're going on these adventures, you're going to be developing their skills and attributes as you wander across a campaign and face off the various denizens of the forest, inspire the songs, live your legend, become Bardsung, all those fun things over there. Basically, it's a dungeon crawler. It's a campaign-based dungeon crawler with single shot as well, and it's in a new setting that's different from the original Bardsung with a monstrous black dragon that, granted, does look pretty cool. I am a sucker for big miniatures, well, once I get them, and until I get them. Once they're here, I need to figure out where they go, and that's when I become a sucker for a selective amount of big miniatures and not the large amount that I would theoretically want, but not actually. But either way, this is a game, a whole new adventure. Your choices will matter. Free upgrade pack for original backers. Returning backers will get a free upgrade pack for Bardsung, including remastered adventure and rulebooks and cards for porting enemies. So if you want that full backwards compatibility, mix and match, and all that stuff, you have that option there. But as far as the pledge levels in this one, we have $140 for the GameFound exclusive basic version, 2 big boxes over here, the Monstrous Black Dragon, you're going to have Bardsung, you have the Legends expansion, all of that for $140. In fact, for $255, you get the deluxe pledge over here, which is going to give you all of that, but it's also giving you the Futile Crusade expansion, as well as the all deluxe upgrades, which are going to include dice, playmats, and these 3D tiles giving you a level of levels to your battlefield. That's going to be what you get for the additional deluxe pledge, $255. You are saving around $15, $20, something like that. I have to remember the exact, it says $30 again. You're saving $30 supposedly. I'd have to math that out, but I did confirm you're definitely saving. If you get all this, of course, that still means you have to kind of want enough of it to justify it. Like if you're not going to use that playmat anyway, then is it worth going for that pledge? Maybe not. So back accordingly based on what you think you're going to get value out of. That's basically Bardsung over here. It's a follow-up to a game that generally was received mid-ish. Like the original Bardsung was received with mixed feedback. People liked aspects of it. A very common complaint, at least for myself, but a shared complaint, was the grind. That is a little bit too grindy as far as the experience. That is something that they know they are trying to address. I did a first impressions video on the game on Bardsung Tales of the Forsaken Glade, but it's very much a first impressions because I can't comment on grind in a single shot scenario for a campaign game. So it is one that I do know that they are aware of it, and they said they are making changes to the gameplay. But to a certain extent, that does mean you have to to kind of back on faith, depending on what your issues with the game were. If you didn't like the game at all, I don't think this is going to be a game for you. There's too much shared DNA for the original Bardsung. But there are tweaks and quality of life changes that do enhance it a little bit, which means if you had complaints, it might be a better version for it. And if your issue was grind, you kind of are going to back on a bit of a leap of faith as to whether they addressed it enough for you. That's the reality of where this one is. As far as the add-ons, we covered that. Well, the add-ons are basically going to be things that are already in the options. Well, we have the Overseer Wandering Monster, we have the Ancient Upgrade Pack, but most of these are going to be things that are in the pledge levels already. And as far as shipping is going to be down over here. Shipping is, if I scroll down here, it'll be $24 or for the USA, 34 to 55 pounds, depending how much it is, which is a big amount. That's a big chunk. In fact, sadly enough, recent copies of Bardsung, the original one, were available on like Game Nerds for less than the price of shipping of this game. So it's just going to add to your cost, which is something you need to take into account. Which brings us to the should you back or should you not will hold its value. And my instinct is it won't. It's a tricky one over here because the original Bardsung, way back, and it's one of those things I actually get flack for this every once in a while because people are like, you said back Bardsung. If you watch my original content for Bardsung, I said that I was intrigued by the game, but I was going to back it because I knew that it will hold its value, at least if you sold it at first, which is exactly what I did. I got Bardsung and I played it for 15 hours, saw it wasn't for me, and then sold it for more than what I paid for it because it does hold its value at first. In general, Steamforged games have had a degree of demand to them, but also a degree of mixed reception. Some of the games have done better than others. Monster Hunter World, really well received. Resident Evil, generally well received. But the original Dark Souls, not as much. Bardsung definitely got mixed feedback. Again, both those because of the grind to an extent. And so this is one that normally I would say if you get rid of it right away, if you play it right away and see it's not for you, it'll hold its value because generally that's held true for their games, including like Horizon Zero Dawn, same situation. But it's always tricky when you come back to the pot. When you come back to the well for more, it's always trickier because effectively you're saying, okay, well, do people have the confidence that this is going to be better than the original one? And the original one, by the way, did not do great in the secondhand market over time. Initially it did. Initially you could see people selling it for like $600 for the all-in. It was a little insane. But over time it dropped to a very, very, very large amount. You could see copies, retail copies being sold for like, $40, $50. Even now on a miniature market, you can see copies fairly cheaply. It has not done well in the overall market. And the problem is this is a sequel, which means that you have to question how many people are hoping that will be different or relying on it being different enough. And so I think instinctively, especially once you combine the shipping on this one, I think this is one that likely will not hold its value. That said, an important distinction is this one is not going to retail. The original game did go to retail. This one is not going to retail, so there will not be a retail presence. There will not be a retail market dropping underneath it. It's going to come down to the people who are backing this campaign and how much they like this one or not. So especially if there's large improvements to the game, that would drastically change things. I'm not expecting there to be large improvements. I'm expecting the quality of life changes we saw in the first prototype, as well as hopefully addressing the grind. So I think this is less likely to hold its value overall, but I don't think it's going to see the same level of drop that the original did because there's not a retail market for this one. Moving on, we have Stefan Feld City Collection, Chichen Itza, and Valencia. We have two new games, well, one new one and one, well, redone version. Valencia is going to be a redone version of Stefan Feld's Strasbourg, and Chichen Itza is a new game from him. Dealing with, like, dudes on a map and fighting, it's a whole different kind of Stefan Feld game. Very, like, if you ever played the Oracle of Delphi, that feels a little bit atypical for Stefan Feld. Amerigo, a little bit as well. They're games that branch out a little bit as far as what he's doing. Chichen Itza feels like the most, visually and thematically, feels like the most different Stefan Feld game I've ever seen. That said, I don't know if that means it's a good thing or a bad thing. That part I can't tell. But 800 backers, $214,000 raised, 10 days to go. This is the newest Stefan Feld City Collection over here from Queen Games, bringing you, well, Chichen Itza, as well as going to have you fighting all these monsters over here. You're going to have a whole bunch of beasts. You're going to be powering up your forces. You're using a fascinating action selection system. Let me see if I can scroll down because I think it's pretty cool, which it's cool with a caveat, because effectively you're going to have this grid of actions that are randomly placed, and then these numbers that are randomly placed, the first person to go to each spot gets the lower cost, and the second person gets the higher cost. So if you go to this spot, you pay a 1 for the first person and a 5 for the second person, which is fascinating as far as the decision space, and I like that. What I find intriguing is inherently that's not balanced around the action itself, which means there's going to be a degree of sometimes in a given game state, certain things will become less efficient because of the way things randomly came out, and you should not pursue certain strategies because of that. So I'm very intrigued as to how that goes. I really want to play that, just the action system alone. I like the chaos of not being balanced and the players having to figure out what's going to be more balanced for their play. I really like that over there. Lots of other things going on. Again, these monsters you're actively fighting against with the various abilities as you power up. So lots of very much a dudes on a map style game in a Stefan Feld Eurogame universe. As far as Valencia, Valencia is going to be a new version of Strasbourg, which is an older Stefan Feld title. Not as overall, I mean, it's a well-rated game, but not one of his more popular, harder to get games. As far as the pledges over here, we have Valencia Classic for 49, Valencia Deluxe for 85, we have Chichen Itza for 86, and we have Chichen Itza and both Classics for 135, Chichen Itza Deluxe for 150, Chichen Itza and Classic for 232, and then we have the expansion, because Chichen Itza comes with an expansion as well, for 275 over here, and then 7 to 10 for 459, and the entire bundle for $1,294 if you want the entire Stefan Feld City collection over here. A lot of things over here. And you see the regular boxes are expansions, the rest of them are going to be the deluxe. So if you want to be one of those 3 people dropping $1,300 to get all the Stefan Feld titles in the new deluxe versions, this is the campaign for you. As far as should you back or should you not will hold its value, generally it's a little hard to say on these ones, especially because you're dealing with an unknown title, which is Chichen Itza, which is going to depend on how well that's received. I would say in general that oh my gosh, these are always hard games to cover because they usually end up, by the time you're done, you have 4 different versions of the games with different expansions, different component upgrades, adjustments, you have retail, you have Kickstarter, you have all these different places and ways to get their games, which makes it very hard to cover Queen games in general. I would say that usually the deluxe versions of their games don't do that badly, but as far as whether they hold their value or just don't lose that much, that is very much game to game, and it also depends on the follow-up campaigns they have. It's very hard to give clear advice. I would say in general, if you get Chichen Itza and you get the deluxe version of it, and you find it's not a game for you, follow what I said earlier by Bardsung, where just turn around and get rid of it faster, sooner rather than later, because if it's a well-rated, well-loved game, Marrakesh for a while did hold its value until the market got a bit more flooded with so many different versions and iterations of it, but especially initially, it is likely to hold its value, especially if it's good. So I would say that you're probably somewhat safe-ish if you get Chichen Itza and find that it's not a game for you, but try to do so sooner rather than later, especially if it's not that well received. That will absolutely change everything. Moving on, we have the Maniac from Escape Studios Games. 255,000 euro raise, 2012 backers. This is another horror game. They've done a bunch of horror games. They've done Tales of Evil, Boogeyman, Last Friday. They've done a lot of these games, and the Maniac seems fascinating overall. Dealing with a double hidden movement aspect where you're going to have the killer is going to be basically a slasher movie. You're playing a slasher movie as a game. One player is going to be the Maniac. There's 3 ways to play. There's Solitaire, where you basically cooperative, or solo, where you're playing against the game. The game is controlling the Maniac, who's the slasher killer. You have the standard mode, where you're going to have up to 6 people playing, and one of them will turn into the Maniac as you play. So a little bit of Betrayal at the House of the Hill kind of vibes. And then you have the variant mode where someone's going to start off as the Maniac with the other players playing as survivors in the game. You're going to deal with the double hidden movement element where both teams effectively won't know where each other are as you play through it, trying to basically escape, run down the time, be mindful of the killer being stronger, but figuring out whether you can run away and or bide your time until the sheriff shows up. It seems fascinating. Definitely watch the video. I think the video did a good job showcasing the game, and the deluxe version of the game has this full 3D terrain, like multiple floors to the house, all of that. The base game's not going to have that. The deluxe version is going to have that full 3-tiered floor. But as far as the game is over here, we have the basic standard edition over here, giving you the characters, the miniatures, the standees, the game board, all the various character profiles, the tracking for all the stuff, all those things over here. Collectors is going to give you a glow-in-the-dark box, gives you the 3D floors, the various stairs, ladders, and entrance gate, all the various 3D scenery as well, which supposedly you'll have to assemble once, and then it'll fit back in the box. And then we have the 2 expansions, which are going to be at the highest pledge level, giving you the GameFound exclusive expansions for the Director's Cut over here with event cards and 13 new Maniac cards, as well as this new character Thanatos, giving you Nightmare cards, and then again the more new Maniac cards. That's the basic idea of the game over here. Pledge levels are going to come in at 144 for the all-in, 59 for the basic standard, and 89 for the collector's edition over here, and then shipping is going to run you an additional $25 for 25 to 34 depending on what pledge you get. As far as should you back or should you not will hold its value, the game looks very cool, and it's doing very well for them, which I'm happy for. I do think that in general, Escape Studios Games has done a lot of games on crowdfunding that have looked very cool thematically, but haven't really been well received enough once the game showed up. Their games usually are not rated amazingly well, and their games generally have not held their value. So I'm hopeful. Like, watching the trailer for the Maniac, I want this game to be so good. It looks interesting, different, it looks thematic, looks cool. I want this game to be great. But I don't know if it will be, and the question is, am I willing to look past their history so far, where their games have been okay games that haven't held their value despite looking great. And so this one kind of is that leap of faith kind of situation. And the tricky part is, from that standpoint, I would say as far as should you back it, should you not will hold its value, I would caution against backing it. You're basically taking a risk that this game is going to be different than all the past games and be better received and more likely to hold their value when their past ones have not. That said, there's always the risk factor of if this sure enough does become their best received game in general, game that everyone loves, that will of course change everything and it may well hold its value. So there is that factor, but I'd say go with the past more so than the optimism of the future. Moving on, we have Holiday Hijinks Master Detective Collection. $52,000 raised, 900 backers, 11 days to go. This is bringing you a set of 18 card escape room games from Grand Gamers Guild. They've been putting out these every single year, these little holiday themed games, little escape room games with only 18 cards, access to a website, and giving you about an hour of play for these games. This is giving you an all-in of them, the 3 new ones, as well as a pack to hold them all, which is interesting because I don't know about you, but escape room games for me aren't games that I keep after the fact. So like these are games that I would play and then gift, sell, or trade after the fact. Probably with these I would gift or trade because they will spoilers to the will they hold their value, they probably will not. But over here we have the Hijinks Hunt over here, which is basically just access to the Hijinks Hunt, an online adventure available through backer-only campaign updates. So it's a little escape room as you play, which is a fascinating concept. We have the single game for $11. We have the Holiday Hijinks, the new stuff, 10 to 12, as well as the collector's box for $36. And then we have the 1 through 12 plus collector's box for $69, which is easily the best price point for these. But of course, if you have all the rest, that's not going to help you very much. But as far as that's basically what we have over here. A bunch of series of small box escape rooms. You're going to open the box, scan the QR code, and then start turning over cards and solving puzzles in them. And then again, they have this play-along pledge if you want to get a sense of like, whether you'll like this kind of thing. As far as should you back or should you not will hold this value, generally it will not hold this value. Meaning if you're looking at these are games that sell for like $4 to $5 after the fact, and you're paying $11 now. Even if you get the all 12, you're still paying more than the $4 to $5 these go for after the fact in the secondhand market. But that's true for games like this. These types of games don't hold the value. This is more about if you want these, this might be the best way to get them, especially if you get that all-in collector's box. You get all of them for $56 or whatever it was. Was it 56? Was it 56? 69. That's a big difference. $69 for all of those over there, which is a reasonable enough price point, although of course you have to factor in shipping as well and all that. So even at the most reasonable price point, they're still decently priced, won't hold their value, but if you do want them, this is likely the best chance for you to get them without having to like hunt them down yourself and or whatever. So not holding its value, but best way to get them if you do want them. Moving on, we have Madcala. 2,600 backers, 11 days to go, $1,551,000 raised. Madcala is basically it's a game. It's a Madcala style game designed by Manny Tremblay, set in the Wonderland's War universe. Effectively, that's what's going on in this game. This is maybe that's basically it. You're going to be taking control of a character. You're going to have your 2 sides of the board. You're going to be dropping off things and then taking actions over here, trying to go back and forth between the 2 players. It's a 2-player only game. I don't believe there's a solo mode. At least I haven't seen one. But it's basically going to have you taking controls and then using powers and abilities and the Madcala board itself to outlast your opponent in this game. It's a cute game. I've had a chance to. I don't believe I've actually played this one. I saw it played, which doesn't really count as playing it, but it looked cool. Seeing it played looked cool. But either way, as far as the game, as far as well, let's cover the pledges over here. $10 for Pledge Manager access. That's going to give you access to Pledge Manager, which that Pledge Manager access is going up over there. You will get the free bonus items for the campaign, so there's a reason to go there, but that Pledge Manager access is jumping from 1 to 5 to 10 pretty quickly over here. We have Madcala Deluxified for $45, and that's the only pledge level. Past retailers or group copies, whatever it is, we have $45 to get your hands on Madcala Deluxify. Now this almost certainly will have a retail version. The campaign's doing well enough, I'd be surprised if it didn't. But right now in this campaign, we're just looking at the pure Madcala, Deluxified everything, premium chips, spot UV, custom insert, linen finish, premium card quality, stitched edge neoprene mat, all those fun things in the box. As far as why back now, these free bonus items are only available on Kickstarter. You have the faction expansion for $9 value over here. You have the faction expansion that's going to be designed, a new character that's going to be designed during the campaign over here. We have the metal Madcala coin, and then of course we have this one, which is the access to getting this game later is not guaranteed depending on where you are. Meaning even if this game does see retail availability, which I assume it will, the flexibility of where it is, that's a different conversation. So if you have a hard time getting your hands on those games, that's another reason to get this now. As far as shipping is not listed. It's well not on the sidebar. I like sidebars. I got used to sidebars. As far as shipping on this over here, we have shipping $12 to get your hands on a copy of the game, bringing your price point up to $57. And yes, there are a bunch of add-ons in case you want to get things like Wonderland's War, the shards, the promos, faction dice, any of those things from Wonderland's War. They have all of that here as well for you to go ahead and back if you're interested in it. Which brings us to the should you back or should you not will hold its value, and I think it might. In general, it's always hard to say, but this is set in the Wonderland's universe. It's done with Druid City Games quality. Druid City in general, their games have always done well enough. Sometimes they hold the value, sometimes not. not, but they never do poorly, because they look incredibly premium, and they generally are well-weighted enough. And Madcala, I think by nature of the fact that it's being set in the Wonderlands War universe, falls into the camp of being more likely to hold its value, not less so, just because Wonderlands War has definitely done a great job holding its value overall. That is a hard-to-get game for the deluxe. It's a premium game, it's a well-wanted game, and you combine Madcala, which is a good game from the people I know who played it, it's a good game, and it looks beautiful, and so I think that's going to, it's a great theme, really pulls people in, like Madcala, beautiful integration of theme, mechanics, and world building, and so I think this one is overall likely to hold its value for the deluxe version of the game. Moving on over here, we have the Dungeonerator, Die in a Dungeon, 865 backers, 12 days to go, $35,000 raised, coming to you from Roland Kunz, who's done 2 Dungeonerator Kickstarter campaigns. This is the first time that he's turning that into an actual game as well. The Dungeonerator is the idea that you have a bunch of cards that as you lay them out, you create a dungeon. It generates a dungeon through a set of rules as far as just randomly creating a dungeon, and this is going to be taking Die in a Dungeon, which takes that game and then uses your dice to go ahead and start moving through the dungeon to basically, well, have a little dungeon crawl on your table that'll play in 40 to 60 minutes. The pledge levels over here are going to be $5 for a digital Dungeonerator deck, $10 for both of the Dungeonerator decks from the last 2 campaigns. We have $15 for a digital Die in a Dungeon plus the double decks. Again, this is all digital so far. And then we have the early bird over here, single Dungeonerator deck for $15. We have $18 for, well, 18 is when you move past the early bird. This is going to be using a limited quantity pledge, and it does seem like he's actually doing limited quantity. If you followed these videos in general, you know that limited quantity sometimes is a bit of a rug pull where it's actually not limited and they just change the numbers, but he does have one that's been sold out, so I do think it's an actual $100, so if you want that there. We have a single Dungeonerator deck for $18. Once you get past that, we have Die in a Dungeon for $25. We have early bird double Dungeonerator decks for $30, and then we have double for $36, as well as early bird Die in a Dungeon plus deck for $37. I mean, it's basically just, I'm going to keep going. It's all the various combinations of how many decks do you want, and do you want Die in a Dungeon, all of that, and then of course shipping as well. Shipping is going to run you anywhere from $6 to $16 for all the various things over here, or $6 to $13, I guess, in US, and then depending on more than that if you go elsewhere. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? I'm skeptical it will. These kind of smaller box things generally don't. As usual, if you want to guarantee access, support the creator, all of those are good reasons to back, but I think this is less likely this one will hold its value. Moving on, we have Root the Homeland expansion. 17,000 backers, $1.5 million raised, 15 days to go. Lita Games coming back after 3 years with more Root for you in case you've missed it. In case you've been wanting to play some Root, here's more Root for your tabletop. Root the Homeland expansion is going to be introducing 3 new factions. We have the Twilight Council, the Lilypad Diaspora, and the Knaves of the Deepwood over here. Those are going to be the 3 new factions it introduces. It also introduces a Homeland Hirelings pack. Oh, and you can read dev diaries on all of these over on BGG. They link to them. It's great if you want to get a full sense of how they play, what they do. That will help you. I will say the Knaves of the Deepwood uses your vagabonds. It uses vagabonds and it gives you new vagabonds. So you're going to be creating a little bit of a trio of 3 vagabonds, which is a fascinating concept. So using and re-envisioning a current faction, but being done differently, fascinating concept. Either way, we also have the Homeland Hirelings, which gives bats and frog hirelings as well as farmers, and we have the Squires and Disciples, a new deck to swap in for the base of Exiles and Partisans. So that's going to be the content you get over here. That's going to be a $50 pledge for an $80 MSRP. It's going to be coming in at a $16 shipping, which means you're paying $66 for an $80 MSRP, which in general means you're probably overpaying, although you are guaranteeing access to stuff. I'd say it's kind of a little bit of a wash. I'd say back it if you're trying to support the creator, but if you're just not worried either way, and if you have access to regular online retail, you can probably get this cheaper down the road. So this one kind of is a maybe you won't lose money on this pledge, and you do get it first, so there is that. But that's basically, it's not a great deal as far as the general pledge. It's not a bad deal. It's not a great deal. I think a lot of you are probably going to get it anyway because you just plan, I mean, there's 13,000 people over here who are currently getting it anyway because they like Root and they just don't want to have to think about it later or hunt it down or do whatever, which I get it. I mean, I haven't decided whether I'm backing this one because, again, it's not a good deal, but it's just, it is set it and forget it, or do I just wait a year and a half and do that? I should practice what I preach. I'm going to wait a year and a half. I just put out a whole video yesterday. I'm not backing this. I'm not, okay? And it's not, I don't even think you shouldn't back it. I can understand the reason to back it, but I put out a whole video yesterday and I'm going to stick to my guns. I don't think that's a good enough price point. I'll just wait for retail. Anyways, over here, build your own bundle, $150 for estimated MSRP of $230, because what they're doing here is they're giving you that everything in that first pledge for $50 goes into this pledge, so you have all that, but you also have $150 of store credit. This is a good pledge if you don't have enough stuff for Root. If you want to expand your Root offerings, this is basically giving you an extra $80 MSRP for free. And the $150, the price point of what they have in the Kickstarter and the pledge manager, that will be a different conversation. But overall, I think that's a decent price point to be able to explore and adapt whatever Root content you want while getting a pretty good savings on it. And then we have the root gameplay all in, $250 for an estimated MSRP of $380. Again, I do think that's a good deal overall, but obviously, if you're like me and have most of root already, neither of these pledges are going to help you. So these two I think are better pledges. This one is okay. It's not the worst, it's not the best, and it is what it is. So that's kind of your whole should you back it. This is more root content. If you like root, you already know that there's more. If you like root, you kind of are already into this. If you don't like root, you probably shouldn't back this. If you just haven't had a chance to play root, this is a good chance to jump in on it, especially at the higher pledges over here. But that's everything for root. The should you back it's kind of depending on the pledge level. I think that for your basic one, just skip it and get it at retail, and for the higher ones, that's a more of a reason to back. Moving on over here, we have Half-Truth Second Guess, the team-based party game. This is a follow-up to the original Half-Truth from Ken Jennings and Richard Garfield. 1,100 backers, $41,000 raised, 16 days to go. Half-Truth Second Guess gives you the answers in front of you. You're basically going to get a question with 6 answers, but the answers are 3 of them are right and 3 of them are wrong. And so the question is, can you as a team, can you figure out what you're going to contribute? The problem is, if you guess completely correctly, you're going to help your team. If you get even one wrong, you aren't. So the more you can guess correctly, the better you'll help your team if you get it, but it is all or nothing as far as how that works. So it's a bit of a risk as far as how much do you think you know the answers as you try to help your team with the victory. It looks cool, the fun little trailer over here. From people who've played the game, they say it's fun. I'm sure it's fun. My big problem with these kinds of games is I like party games where it's the game evolves based on the combination of things. So Clover, Monikers. Well, Monikers is tricky because Monikers does evolve based on the combination of cards in the pool, but only in its weird way. Monikers is actually my least favorite in that genre. But So Clover, Decrypto, Codenames, all those are games that kind of give you a combination of things, and the combination of things determines the puzzle you're playing. But versus a game like this, any of these kinds of games that are more focused on a singular question, even though it might be a fun experience, once you've played the question's kind of dead for you and your group. So you are limited to the number of questions you actually have in order to be able to experience it properly. Because especially when the questions are in front of you, you're more likely to remember the answer in the future, which totally changes the game, obviously. So not nearly the same fun experience. So it might be great, but I don't like singular trivia games in general because of that aspect. But as far as the pledge levels over here, we have $20 for a copy of Half-Truth Second Guess, and we have $49 for the original game plus expansion. And if you are in any way one of the 100 people backing this pledge, please don't. Like, really, please don't. Right now on Amazon, you can get the original game for $20 with free shipping on Amazon right now. So right now, if you get this pledge, you're paying an extra $30, not extra, you're paying $30 instead of $20, and you're waiting a year to get the game instead of getting it now. So that just seems like not the best way to get the game. Obviously, if you're in a certain option, a certain location where you can't get from Amazon and your price is more expensive, that changes it. But in general, this is just priced poorly compared to the currently available options for the original game of Half-Truth. Past that, as far as should you back or should you not, will hold its value. I mean, likely not, even just evidenced by the fact that the retail alone is cheaper. This is probably a game that'll be cheaper at retail. Yes, there's a promo pack, so you'll get that, but it won't hold its value in the secondhand market, and you'll probably be able to get the game cheaper down the road for the regular retail of it, so I recommend just waiting. From there, we have Mutagen. Mutagen, a customizable worker placement game set in a biopunk universe. I've never heard the time biopunk. I like it. It's cute. 565 backers, $36,000 raised, 16 days to go. Coming to you from Jonda Games, who've had a bunch of games under the belt by now. Illustrated by the Micho, very evidently, although, fun fact, taking us jump back over here to Stefan Feld, this campaign over here, Valencia, is apparently illustrated by the Micho, which I do not buy. I mean, I believe them. I don't think they're lying to me, but this does not look like his art style at all. Nothing here looks like the Micho in the slightest. I'll take their word for it. I believe it because, I mean, it seems like a weird thing to lie about, but I would never have guessed that. Versus Mutagen over here, definitely, I would have guessed a million times over. It looks like the Micho's artwork. Over here, we have the worker pledge for the game, $46 for the retail edition of the game, and then $59 for the Mutagen pledge, which will give you, well, I should probably tell you a bit more about the game. This is going to be a customizable worker placement game. Literally, you're going to be customizing your workers, adding these fun little gloves to them, in the deluxe edition of the game at least, adding these little gloves that'll give them different abilities, telling you what those workers do differently. Combine that with a bunch of locations to visit and the fact that each location will have different spots for different types of workers, because you have different location spots, different types of workers, and ways to upgrade and customize those workers, giving you a whole lot of variety to this worker placement game over here. So a lot going on. The Mutagen pledge over here, $59, gives you those 20 Mutagen attachments. It gives you the expansions over here, Johnny Pack and David Tershi putting out expansions for the game, and that's what you get for the additional $13 on the basic pledge. And then for the Kiva pledge over here, you're getting all of that, but you're also getting the metal coins as well as the Mutagen playmat. So the deluxe shards of fragments and then the Mutagen playmat, that's going to be an additional what is that, 103, 59. That's a big chunk of extra over there. That's $64. That what it is? $59, no, $44, $44, that's a big difference, $44 extra to go ahead and get the playmat and the coins, which I guess is not terrible, $20 for the playmat, $20 for coins-ish, that's roughly par. So overall, that's basically what we got from Drawn to Games. Very, very customizable worker placement game with a ton of places to go, a ton of things to do, and a ton of ways to upgrade and develop your workers as you play through this. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? Generally, let's take a look at shipping first. Shipping is going to run you, if you're in the US, $8 to $12 depending on the pledge, which overall is very, very reasonable. I assume they're subsidizing the shipping. Speaking of which, for Drawn to Games in general, their games usually come in very reasonably priced for the amount of content you get relative to other games out there. And so overall, as far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? I'd say ish. In general, their games are very reasonable priced, but they're reasonably priced. But their games have been a little bit like on the edge as far as holding their value. They usually get roughly what you paid for it back. Maybe you lose the shipping, you lose a little bit of something. Despite putting out very reasonably priced games that are generally well received, their games haven't been great on the second-hand market. They usually do okay. There's demand enough for the game. Mutagen so far does seem to be a little bit underperforming as far as their past games. Like the last one, Explorers and Evoria, did really, really well, and this one's definitely doing okay as far as the games go. So as far as should you not, will hold its value. If you want to support the creator, you want to get it earlier, by all means. Likely will lose something, but does okay-ish on the second-hand market. And our last campaign of the day is going to be Avatar: Journey of Aang from Bad Crow Games. This coming in at $155,000 raised, 1,500 backers, and 16 days left to go. Avatar: Journey of Aang is going to be a cooperative game which players are going to join forces, taking on the role of Aang's companions, and I believe there may have been a competitive mode too, but I could be wrong with that. I remember seeing that somewhere once, but I don't know if I saw this on the campaign page, so I might be wrong. But either way, for the most part, the default mode is definitely cooperative, that's for sure. And don't quote me on the competitive thing unless you see it somewhere. Relaxing and competitive. I guess that depends on the game, I assume, because either way. Dice builder, cooperative, adjustable difficulty, elemental power, push your luck, player powers. You're basically going to be exploring the world, going on various tests, developing Aang's affinity for the elements, and you can watch the video, it's a pretty good video overall, but you're trying to explore Aang's affinity for the elements, helping him level up, before the combat heads down, you have to face off in a final boss, and you're just trying to power up and get there along the way. So there's going to be a lot of testing, a lot of rolling dice, a lot of using your cards to cash in, to know when to mitigate, to know how to power things up, to know when to explore and trade dice in for your avatar dice, just a lot of going on tests and challenges as you explore the world, with Appa moving around from location to location, little save points. They have a cute system where Appa's on a cloud, and the cloud becomes the save point, and Appa just wanders until the cloud catches up, so to speak, until you develop your save points. You have your deluxe edition of the game, which is going to give you a whole bunch of upgrades from dual blade boards, wooden upgrades over here, wooden upgrades for the challenge markers, for the mastery pegs, the Appa figure giving you a painted upgrade over here, starter dice, all these various things, lots of options for the upgraded deluxe version of the game, and the standard edition of the game being well priced at, we have $79 for the deluxe and $45 for the standard edition. Standard edition is basically a basic kind of retail copy of the game, all the usual stuff, and the deluxe is giving you a lot of wooden upgrades, dual layered upgrades, premium component upgrades, and all of that. As far as shipping on the game is going to run you, let's see, where is shipping? Shipping over here is United States, that's $16 and $20 for the versions of the game, bringing you to $20 to $80, $100, or $61 for your game. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? It's hard to say on this one. This one looks like this. I can't tell the target audience is for this. It does say like it's leaning into not too lightweight, but I don't know. The game definitely looks on the lighter side, lots of strategy, lots of mitigation, and especially that basic version of the game is targeting the mass market as far as people are going to want to dive into Avatar: Journey of Aang. You can't make too complicated you shouldn't make too complicated a game using a very mass market IP. I assume they've leaned into adjacent plus hoping to pull people in. Seems like a drop of splendor elements going on where you can permanently upgrade your tableau to some extent, but then you're relying on your assets as well. So it does look approachable, but the question is how approachable versus strategic it gets. But as far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? It is hard to say. I think it's leaning more into the mass market audience, and definitely doesn't have a ton of people. I mean, it has 1,500 people backing it, but for an Avatar IP, that's not a huge amount, and I think it's likely leaning more into the mass market. But the problem is, the mass market is still going to want, people who like Avatar are still going to want the deluxe version of the game at some point if they haven't found it until now. If this is the first time finding out the campaign a year and a half from now when you have your copy, there will be people who want to pay $100 to get the all-in deluxe version of this. So it's a little bit of a hard one. I would definitely put it in the risk camp. I'm not confident it will hold its value. I'm not confident it won't. You're dealing with a weird situation where there's a deluxe, there's a retail, there's a slightly more mass market approach, but also an IP that may encourage people to spend money on it, which I don't think would be the craziest thing to do. So I'd put it in the risk category. Might hold its value, might not. Do what you want over there. And that's basically everything we have over here. I think that's everything. That's all the stuff we have as far as the campaigns, which means it's time for our picks of the week. In general, for our picks of the week, we pick two things. We pick the game that we think is most likely to hold its value, and we pick our personal interest pick of the week. And to that end, for my personal interest pick of the week, I'm actually going to go with Stefan Feld's Chichen Itza over here. I like Stefan Feld games a lot. I am fascinated by this game. I don't know if I like it or not. I have no idea. It might be a horrible miss for me, but I am very intrigued to see his take on, well, this theme to an extent. I think that'll be... I'm intrigued. That's what it comes down to. I'm very intrigued with this one, and curious to see how it'll do. And as far as my value pick of the week, which one's most likely to hold its value, I'm going to go with Madcala. I think Madcala from all the campaigns is most likely to hold its value. The only other caveat would be the root. The higher pledges of root are a good buy, but that's a tricky one because that would be giving a value pick of the week to a campaign where the vast majority are not picking that pledge level. So it's a little bit tricky because otherwise it would get the value pick of the week. So Madcala is going to be our value pick of the week, and Stefan Feld's Chichen Itza is going to be my personal interest pick of the week. And that's basically everything. As far as upcoming campaigns, we have a few. We have Shallow Sea launching shortly with 3,000 followers currently on the newest game from Bad Comic Games. We've done several hits until now. And then we have 10 from Ivy Games, for Ivy Studios, launching with 9,000 followers. 10 is going to be an intricate roll and write game launching tomorrow. And that's basically everything. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you appreciate this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one. My friend called me yesterday to tell me he saw a fox on his way to work. I asked him how he knew the fox was on its way to work. He hung up on me.